My name's James, you're watching me, and I'm talking about watches. Today I want to talk to you about a leather watch travel case or roll. I've been wanting to buy a leather watch case or watch roll for some time, and I've been looking around a fair bit. I've been looking on AliExpress as well as other sites, and I've been coming into a few problems when I've been looking. The issues that I've been having is, one, it's either being too cheap and not really the quality that I'm after, or secondly, that it's too expensive and I don't really want to spend a huge amount of money on the watch roll. Also, I then decided, well, since I've actually got a few skills making things, I've made wallets and all sorts of little bits and pieces for myself out of leather. I've got all the leather tools with me, I've already purchased them, I've got some leather on hand, I might as well make my own. It might make a nice custom watch roll for myself, and it will make it an interesting video to make as well for my channel. But then I came across another issue. The first issue was trying to discover what watch roll that I wanted to sort of homage or copy what was online. And I ran into a couple of obstacles. The first obstacle is that I didn't want a watch roll that looked like this. The reason is, most watches that I wear are on bracelets. I don't want to put the bracelet up against the case back in a watch roll and have it rub. Now, this may be me being a little bit overcautious with my watches. I do like to look after them. Quite a lot of watches in my collection I do end up selling on because they sort of cycle through my collection a little bit. So I like to keep them in as best condition as I can, and I don't want the inside of the bracelets being damaged or that case back being scratched by the bracelet itself. The second issue I had was the ones that I had found that had a more circular, tubular sort of look. Either had sort of compartments or a weird cushion that I didn't particularly like, and it didn't really suit what I wanted to make, or they were too complicated and I'd struggled to make it. So I ended up having a bit of a think, and I've designed my own custom watch roll. Yes, I've taken inspiration certainly of a few others that I've seen online, but I've pretty much come up with the design myself. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip the camera around now. I'm going to sketch for you on paper just to show you basically my thoughts on what I'm going to try and make. As I then actually start to make it, I'm going to film the steps as I go along, and just so you can see the watch roll sort of come together. And hopefully by the end it actually works out for me, and that this is quite an interesting video for you guys to watch. And at the end I'll come back and I'll describe to you whether I'm actually happy with the end results or whether it was a complete and utter disaster. Let's flip the camera around now. I'm going to sketch out for you what I'm looking to do, and then you're going to see in a very quick, short amount of time me making something which I'm sure is going to take me a lot of hours. I'll see you again shortly. So I thought the easiest way to show you what I'm planning to make is by drawing it for you. Basically, from the side view, I want it to be circular. It's going to be a tube, and inside I'm going to have a divider. So when you look down inside of it, there'll be a divide there, and you can put your two watches on the cushions themselves. The way I'm going to achieve this, and what I'm going to do to make it have a little bit of strength to it, is I'm going to cut a piece of leather. I'm going to make it long enough that I can fold that back in on itself, creating a double layer. That part there is then going to be curved around. That will become the circular part of the watch roll itself. This will then become the lid basically, and I'm going to put some sort of clip on the end here. In here I'm going to cut two sections of leather, both round, one bigger than the other. In the center I'm going to cut three, and then two on the side here. And let me explain what I'm going to do. On the sides here I'm going to cut one larger size and then one smaller that looks like that. I'm going to glue them together so they are double layered. I'm then going to use this single edge here to sew through, and I'm going to sew on to that edge there, and same on the other side. So I'll end up with this double thickness, but also a nice easy edge to sew onto here. In the center I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to have a center piece with two outer pieces. Same as what I've just done with the outside. Okay, that's not quite to scale. I'm going to have two larger pieces that sandwich that smaller piece in the center. Again, I am going to use those outer edges to sew here in the center. They will sit like a sandwich and then spread out, and I'm going to sew those little lips down onto the leather here itself so it looks nice and neat and tidy. What it's going to do is going to end up with stitches through this leather, and you're going to see them, which is going to be great because when I fold the leather over, it's going to cover those stitches and look a little bit neater and tidier. And then I'll end up putting a buckle on. I'm likely to fold this little section over here as well, just to make this a little bit firmer. The leather by itself, or that cowhide that I'm going to use, is a little bit floppy. I want this to have a bit of strength. I want this bit to have a bit of strength, and I want it to feel nice and strong in the hand. So, I'm sure that looks like a bit of a mess. Maybe you understood what I said, maybe you didn't. But I'm going to jump into making this thing now, and I'm going to show you the steps as I go along. Let's see if this works out. Fingers crossed. So I've cut a nice long strip of leather. This is a cowhide in a cognac colour. This is going to be the main body of the watch roll itself. The idea being that I put the ends, a middle and another end here, fold it back on itself to give it a little bit of extra strength so that it's going to look sort of like that with the lid. I've cut all these little circles. They're going to be the ends, the middle and the other end. And you can see here that I've drawn a line like that because there's two sizes of circle. The idea being is I stick that down together, sew that together, leaving that little edge to be the edge that then is sewn to the edge of the main body of the watch roll. Alright, I'm going to go do that and I'll come back and you'll see the next step. So next I've glued together these pieces. This is going to be the center piece, the divider, and I've punched holes through here, through all three layers. That will hold them together, and then these holes here are going to be on that little lip which is going to attach to the main body. I've punched holes through here, which is where that lip is going to attach on two sides. So basically you'll end up looking like that. I've then started sewing and I've sewed these two sections together, leaving that little lip available, and that's what's going to go on the end there. So that will be the end piece. Now I've punched these holes with a little tool, looks like a fork, and what that does is it allows it easier to sew because you've already pre-done the holes. I've also counted the amount of holes along here and counted the amount of holes here, so they will all line up for me. So next step is finish sewing this one, and then the fiddly part of sewing this little bit to this little bit. Now you can see I've sewn in that central divider. You can see I've split that two pieces surrounding that center piece of leather and sewn all the way those two channels there, which is a little bit fiddly. The idea behind that is it gives it some strength, plus it's nice and neat. And now I'm going to fold it back in on itself and create two layers of leather, which hopefully gives it a little bit more strength as well. You can also see that I've cut a channel along this section here, and the idea being I'm going to punch some holes along that outer piece of leather, and this piece here, the end piece which has the holes in it, will then sit in there and they get sewn together. I'm also going to sew along this edge here to give it a bit of strength. I'm going to sew along this edge here to give it also a little bit of strength, and I'm going to put in the little clip that I'm going to put into here. You'll see by doing that I'm actually hiding all the stitching as well, and where that clip comes through, or where it's going to be attached, that's going to be hidden in behind there as well, so you just see this nice smooth leather. So I've now folded that leather back over again. I've stitched through here to create a lip, and I have glued that on top of itself. Whilst I've been in there, I've put this clip in there, glued, and also stitched that as well, and I've stitched along the top here. So it's really taking shape, and that sort of feeling of stiffness and protection that I wanted is actually coming together now. So it's looking pretty cool. My next bit here, as I mentioned before, is to stick the sides on. And once I've stuck the sides on, I'm gonna fold that back like that, put the other clip in, and I think that should be done. So next time you see me, in a few seconds for you, in probably a couple of hours for me, it should be done. And there we have it, pretty much done. I've just got to do a little bit of final cleanup, make it a little bit more neat and tidy. But basically, that's how it looks. Unclip it, and I've got two watches inside, and they're nice and firmly in there. Voila. The last thing I am going to do is these edges here. I've got a special tool that can clean it up and make it a little bit more sort of burnished, they call it. So you may wonder which tools that I used. Well, I've got a few tools. I do a little bit of leather work at home. Nice pair of scissors. Some very good needles that you need to use. This is what you use to put the holes, pre-do the holes. Just a little pricker thing, which then you push through the hole to make sure it's nice and cleanly done. A hammer, and then obviously you use the leather itself and the waxed twine. Cool, let's go back to me and I'll tell you a little bit more about this and how long it took me. Okay, so for you guys, this is going to be a few minutes later. For me, it's now a couple of days later. I even put the same jumper on so that it looks nice and consistent on the video. So I put a lot of time and effort into this. My design actually worked out quite well. It isn't perfect. It isn't exactly what was in my head. However, I'm really impressed by it. And I hope that by showing you, it's giving you something to see, that's something that I can make and something that you can make at home as well. As I'm sure I said earlier, I'm no expert at leathercraft. I've literally taught myself by watching YouTube videos. I just came up with this design because I thought it would work. I thought doubling the leather over like I have in those couple of different areas would give it a bit of strength and a little bit of body. And it actually has worked out quite well. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. I am going to make a few more videos similar to like this in the future. I'm going to make a custom watch box, and I've got a bit of a cheat about how to do that. I've made one previously. I came up with a bit of a cheat for it, made it quite easy to do, and I'm going to recreate it because I actually need another watch box myself. So stay tuned for that, or those type of videos, but also my other watch reviews and first impressions. Hope that you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you again soon.